All right, so as we wait for former President Trump down at Mar-a-Lago this afternoon, there are two co-defendants of his in one of the four criminal cases pending against him who are now asking a judge to let them off the hook. This is also happening today. Lawyers for Walt Nauta and Carlos de Oliveira have asked the court to drop their charges in the classified documents case in Florida. These two guys, who both, by the way, still work for Trump, are accused of lying to investigators and helping the former president obstruct the government's investigation. All three pleading not guilty. This comes as Mr. Trump himself prepares, he has to make history next week, right? Becoming the first former president ever to go on trial, criminal trial in the United States. They'll have jury selection beginning in that hush money Stormy Daniels case here in New York. So to talk about it, the attorney Rachel Kugel joins us right now. And, you know, it is a headline, no matter what you think of the former president. We've never seen this before, so I would say anytime you've never seen anything before, that's a news story. There's a Politico article that mentions Michael Cohen is supposed to be the key witness, and it's only interesting to me because of, again, the headline in it. Michael Cohen on the Trump trial. Prepare to be surprised. I don't know. Should we? What do you think? Should we be prepared to be surprised next week?
Yeah, we should not prepare to be so surprised, because there would be a real problem if we're surprised, because in criminal law, there should be no surprises. There's a process of discovery. There's a process of, drafting complaint and information documents. The defense absolutely should be on notice of what the state's evidence is, of who it is. He mentions in that interview that he's referring to corroboration, right, and how much corroboration that the state actually has with regard to these charges. There is no way that the defense should be surprised. And if there is anything that that the defense is shocked by, you can bet your life they will be jumping up and down saying that there's some discovery or Brady violation here, because that is the bedrock of a criminal trial is no surprise for the defense.
So it's interesting. Cohen, of course, is supposed to be the star witness, and he's the former fixer for Trump, and he was the guy that handed over these hush money payments to the former porn star and Stormy Daniels in this case way back before the election in 2016. We've talked to legal people about this time and time again. I don't know if it's a consensus, but a lot of people say this is the one case that's not as strong as some of the other cases. So I'm curious if you agree with that, or how do you see this case compared to some of the other cases being made against the former president?
It's a ridiculous case.
Shouldn't even be brought then, in your view.
It's so flimsy, and if we weren't dealing with the defendant we're dealing with, this would never have been brought. There's nothing here that's really illegal, and the district attorney in New York seems to not care that there's no sort of crime underlying this. That seems to be sort of an afterthought, the pesky Constitution and everything. It doesn't seem to matter to anybody, and it's shocking for me watching this as an aside, because it's something that just anybody, your first day of law school, you should be able to see that there's nothing here. There's nothing illegal about hush money. There's nothing, it sounds like scandalous, but there's actually nothing illegal about that. You're absolutely permitted. People do non-disclosure agreements and things like that all the time, especially celebrities. There's nothing illegal about it. So then they try to say, well, putting it on the balance sheet is somehow illegal. But even if it were, right. Quite frankly, it defies logic that you even would do it.
No, I get it. They went searching for something. They tried to make what might have been a misdemeanor into a felony by using campaign finance laws and all the like. The wider conversation is, because it plays into the Trump narrative of everybody's out to get him, right? That's what he's been saying all along. There's a second Politico article that I'll put up here, which takes the opposite side of that, which I also think is kind of interesting. It's how Donald Trump gets special treatment in the legal system. And the basic premise, if you read through it, is that, he appointed some of the judges who are handling some of his cases. He's appointed 3 of the 9 Supreme Court justices. Which is it, in your view? Everybody's out to get him, or he's getting special treatment?
There's no doubt that everybody's out to get him. Many of these prosecutors that are prosecuting right now actually ran on a Get Trump platform. So there's no doubt that everyone is out to get him. I think that's clear. And they've done such a good job that, quite frankly, to some extent, they've been able to somehow make this billionaire an underdog. You find yourself rooting for him, even if you're not politically aligned with him in some weird way.
Could there be some places where they have a point and others that they don't? In other words, we talked about this, as you put it, flimsy case in your view, whereas are some of the federal cases that Jack Smith's bringing January 6th more substantive cases? Is that fair? Or?
So I think, though, I think when they're talking about special treatment, I think what you have to do is really realize the difference between the man and the office. I don't think Donald Trump is getting special treatment unless we're talking about that they're out to get him because they just don't like him and they want him to go down. Now, on the other hand, they are prosecuting not just a former president, which is bad enough, but the presumptive nominee, the person who is running for president right now. And so I think what you have that might be getting a different type of treatment, and arguably it should, is the prosecution of a former president and current leading presidential candidate. And that should be treated special because it's important that we get to vote for the people we want to vote to. That's a really important, constitutional point that is the bedrock of our society. And, if any of these convictions stand, it's going to have, huge implications on the election, both now and quite frankly, forever, with regard to, our system of government.
May I ask you one final question on that? Do you believe he should have, because would you believe, legally that the president or former president then should just have total immunity from this kind of thing? That's the argument, right? That's the Supreme Court argument.
Yeah. So he does have that pending. I doubt that the Supreme Court will find complete carte blanche immunity.
They almost definitely won't, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really unlikely result. And that's not what I'm saying either. But what I am saying is there should be a sort of special status, not for Donald Trump, but for any person that finds themselves in this position. It's the office that should get special treatment. In other words, if you want to go and prosecute the president of the United States, or more importantly, the presumptive nominee, that's such a big deal in our country. This is not a banana republic. That's a really big deal if you're going to jail your political opponent. And so maybe there should be a level of, special treatment, for lack of a better word, to make sure that we're holding that to its standard. Every I is dotted, every T is crossed, and so maybe that should be treated with kid gloves in that regard, because it's a big deal.
All right, Rachel, it is a big deal. That's there's no doubt about. We appreciate you coming on. We'll keep talking about this. Obviously, it'll be a big part of our show on Monday with this other trial starting and the other ones down the line. We appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you. I'll be down there on Monday in criminal court working,
in New York. Okay, yeah. Well, it's a first.
I'll take a look.
It is a first, like we said, no matter what you think. Now, the former